And to discuss more about the invasion of the National Assembly complex today, we're being joined again on News Track by a legal practitioner, Mr. Victor Ekwim. Many thanks for joining us. Now, can you give us the legal implication of this invasion that occurred today?
Okay, first, the premises and the precincts of the National Assembly enjoys immunity, cannot be invaded by security agencies or the police. So this is a breach of the provisions of the law as provided in the Constitution. Perhaps if any infringement of the law has been committed, there are better ways and modes of carrying out any arrest if you have anybody to arrest there. But to stop the legislative function being carried out, I think everything is wrong with this. If there are acts of illegality, then you approach the court to set it aside. But no security agency has powers to stop legislative functions from being carried out on the floor of the National Assembly. So this is a breach of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Now, latest reports reaching us already say that the principal officers, the meeting by the principal officers has already been cancelled. So what does this say about the independence of the various arms of government? We so much proclaim the rule of law in Nigeria, but we observe it more in breach. I don't know how to put this, but I think it's the lowest in our democratic life. We cannot proclaim rule of law when there's so much interference with other arms of government from carrying out their functions. Then where lies the principle of separation of powers? Not too long ago, we were aware how Supreme Court justices and other judges had their residences invaded in the ungodly hours of the night. And we celebrated that act, even though some of us said it was wrong. If there were allegations against those justices, invite them and in a civilized manner and deal with their issues. But the nation celebrated at the time, and now it's been extended to the second arm of government, being invaded by masked security men. I wonder if we actually have criminals in the National Assembly that masked men will have to go to confront. It's most unfortunate. It's despicable. And if we want to make progress in our democratic journey, then we need to observe these principles the way they ought to be and the way they're observed in civilized nations. Well, finally, Mr. Ekwim, the lawmakers are on recess. So why do you think they came to the National Assembly?
Well, as I heard one of them say, that during recess, they still have committee functions to carry out. That's the best we know for now. We want to believe they had legitimate functions to carry out within the precincts of the National Assembly. And they cannot be stopped from doing so, not by another arm of government. I wonder if the National Assembly can also interfere with the functions of the judiciary or even the executive arm of government. We need to uphold the principles of separation of powers. I don't see this as checks and balance. I think it's an infringement of constitutional provisions of separation of power. And it's most unfortunate. If the executive have anything against the legislature, I think they should approach the judiciary to seek a redress and have it rectified, but not in this gestapo manner of clampering on the National Assembly. If this happens in the National Assembly, I wonder what Nigerians out there go through on a daily basis. This is most unfortunate. It's a very sad day in the history of Nigeria.
But Mr. Ekwim, if you observed, you notice that PDP lawmakers were the ones heading to the National Assembly this morning. So why were they the only ones?
The issue is, do they have a right to go to the National Assembly? If yes, why should they be stopped? Like they said, they were going to do committee functions. So if their APC colleagues are not in those committees, I think they still have a right to be there. If they carry out any act that is illegal and unconstitutional, those colleagues have a right to approach the court to set aside those acts carried out without the necessary members or quorum of the National Assembly being constituted. But to use police, or rather DSS, access to the National Assembly is most uncivilized and most unbecoming and a breach of the law of the land.
Mr. Ekwim, many thanks for speaking with us.